The quantum tears were visible now. Anyone with a telescope could see them. Ripples in space where reality was coming apart. On some planets, people could look up and see multiple versions of their own moon, overlapping like ghost images. Ships reported seeing themselves, parallel versions traveling slightly different courses. The galaxy was unraveling. The purification armada gathered at the edge of human space. Over 800 ships from 40 different species, armed with weapons that could crack planets. The largest military force ever assembled. They came to save the galaxy by destroying the ones who had broken it. On Earth, people watched the sky and waited. Some were angry, demanding that their government fight to the last. Others were resigned, accepting that this was the price of human ambition. Most were simply terrified. In orbit around Earth, the 13 human quantum ships formed a precise formation. The Prometheus at the center, surrounded by her 12 sister ships in a perfect sphere. Bora had spent every waking hour for 2 months modifying the drives, linking them together through a network that would allow them to activate as one. "All ships report ready," Mina announced from her station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Admiral Yunji had given command of the operation to Daejung. She trusted him more than anyone else in the fleet. Now she stood on the bridge beside him, watching as the purification armada appeared on long-range sensors. "They'll be in firing range in 4 hours," Yunwoo reported. "Captain, they're already charging weapons." Daejung nodded. He had sent a final message to the armada, explaining what humanity was about to attempt. Some ships had responded with encouragement, wanting to believe the humans could fix their mistake. Most had responded with threats, assuming it was a trick or a desperate bluff. "Bora, are we ready?" he asked. In engineering, Bora was surrounded by displays showing power levels, synchronization readings, and quantum field calculations. Everything was as perfect as she could make it. But she knew that perfection might not be enough. "Ready as we'll ever be," she replied. "Captain, I have to be honest. My calculations show this working in about 60% of my simulations. In 30%, the collapse cascades out of control. In 10%, it just fails and we all die for nothing. 60% is better than 0, Daejung said. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Yunwoo at tactical, his jaw set with determination. Jaewon at navigation, young but brave. Mina at communications, tears on her face but her voice still professional. Taemin standing ready to take command if Daejung died. Commander Woo Jin and his Marines prepared to fight the armada if the plan failed. These were good people. They deserved to live. Everyone in the galaxy deserved to live. "All ships, this is Captain Kim," he said over the fleet channel. "In a few minutes, we're going to attempt something that shouldn't be possible. We're going to fix what we broke. We're going to save the galaxy that we almost destroyed. If this works, we'll be heroes. If it doesn't work, we'll be dead. Either way, it's been an honor serving with all of you." 12 voices responded. 12 other captains who had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not survive. They were ready. In the council chamber of the Galactic Station, Ambassador Mi-sun sat alone. The other representatives had evacuated, not wanting to be near human space when the battle began. But Mi-sun had refused to leave. If her species was going to die today, she would die with them. She thought about all the years she had spent begging the galaxy to accept humanity. All the humiliation, all the rejection. And now at the end, humans were going to sacrifice everything to save the species that had scorned them. There was poetry in that, she supposed. Sad, bitter poetry. On the Prometheus, Haewon watched her instruments with intense focus. The quantum field was unstable, worse than ever. The tears were connecting, spreading faster. They were almost out of time. "Captain, if we're going to do this, it needs to be now," she said urgently. "The field is approaching critical collapse on its own. If that happens before we're ready, the whole galaxy goes with it." Daejung took a deep breath. "Bora, begin the sequence." Starting quantum drive synchronization, Bora announced. "All ships confirm power levels. Synchronization at 20%, 40%, 60%. The 13 ships began to glow with an eerie light. Not normal light, this was something else, something that existed between realities. The crews felt reality start to bend around them. "The armada is firing," Hyunwoo shouted. "Multiple incoming weapons." "Hold position," Daejung ordered. "We can't break formation." Yuna and her fighter pilots launched, along with fighters from the other ships. They flew into the path of the incoming fire, sacrificing themselves to give the capital ships a few more seconds. Explosions bloomed in space. Brave pilots died protecting a plan they didn't fully understand. Synchronization at 80%, Bo-Ra reported. Her voice was shaking now. The whole ship was shaking, vibrating at frequencies that shouldn't exist. On planets across the galaxy, people looked up and saw something impossible. The stars were splitting. Multiple versions of the same stars, overlapping and separating. Reality was tearing itself apart. 90%, Bo-Ra called out. Captain, the field is collapsing faster than expected. If we don't do this in the next 30 seconds, it's over. Then we don't wait, Daejung said. All ships activate quantum drives to maximum power. Now, the 13 ships blazed with impossible light. The quantum drives, all working as one, created a collapse so massive that it tore through the fabric of space-time itself. Every possible reality, every parallel timeline, every quantum possibility, they all collapsed together into a single point. For one eternal moment, everyone in the galaxy experienced something beyond understanding. They existed in all possible timelines simultaneously. They saw every choice they had ever made, every version of themselves that could have been. They saw the universe as it was, as it could be, as it should be, all at the same time. On the Prometheus, Hai-Wan saw it all. She saw timelines where Earth was destroyed, timelines where the quantum field collapsed and took the galaxy with it, timelines where the plan worked perfectly and everyone survived. Hundreds of different futures, all equally real, all happening at once. She saw the truth. In most timelines, humanity failed. Earth died. The galaxy shattered. This timeline, the one she was in now, was the narrowest sliver of possibility, the least likely outcome. But it was the outcome that was happening. The quantum collapse spread outward at the speed of light. It swept through the purification armada, through the council station, through star system after star system. Everywhere it touched, the quantum tiers sealed. Reality stabilized. The overlapping timelines merged back into one. When it was over, the 13 human ships floated in space, their drives dark and silent. The crews were alive. Shocked, traumatized, but alive. The purification armada had stopped firing. 800 ships hung in space, their crews trying to understand what had just happened. They had felt the quantum collapse too. They had seen the other timelines, the ones where they had destroyed Earth and doomed themselves in the process. Captain, Mina whispered, we're receiving messages from the armada. They're thanking us. Daejung let out a breath. He felt like he had aged 100 years in the last few minutes. Hai-Wan, did it work? Are the tiers sealed? Hai-Wan checked her instruments, hardly daring to hope. Yes, Captain, the quantum field is stable. The tiers are gone. We did it. We actually did it. Cheers erupted across the bridge. Crew members hugged each other, crying and laughing. They had been certain they were going to die, and now they were alive. The galaxy was saved, but Bo-Ra didn't cheer. She stared at her displays, her face pale. Captain, the drives are burned out. All of them. Every quantum drive in the fleet is permanently dead. We can't use them again. Admiral Yunji put a hand on her shoulder. That's okay, Bo-Ra. That's probably for the best. Over the next days and weeks, the full consequences became clear. The quantum collapse had left permanent markers in space-time, scars that would remain for thousands of years. Scientists across the galaxy studied them, proof of how close they had all come to extinction. The Galactic Council met in an emergency session. The vote was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership. Not because the Council wanted to, but because they had no choice. Humanity had nearly destroyed the galaxy by accident, but they had also saved it through deliberate sacrifice. Ambassador Mi-sun stood before the Council as an equal for the first time. Humanity accepts membership, she said formally, and we agree to permanently decommission all quantum drive technology. It was too dangerous. We understand that now. The quantum drives were sealed away in a vault on Earth's moon, guarded by soldiers from a dozen different species. A monument to human ambition and human responsibility, locked away so that the mistake could never be repeated. Captain Daejung and his crew became legendary figures. Some species celebrated them as heroes who saved the galaxy. Others feared them as the ones who nearly ended it. Most felt both emotions at once, respect and terror mixed together. The Prometheus herself was decommissioned. They placed her in orbit around Earth as a monument, a museum ship where people could visit and learn about what had happened. Earth appeared harmless. Then the galaxy felt its wrath. 50 years had passed since Earth's humiliation at Terminus Prime. To the rest of the galaxy, humanity had become exactly what the Council predicted. They were quiet. They paid their tribute on time. They stayed in their solar system like obedient children. Most alien species forgot humans even existed. But deep under the surface of Mars, in a facility that didn't appear on any official records, Dr. Minho was working on something that would change everything. He was old now. His hair had gone completely gray and his hands sometimes shook when he was tired. But his mind was still sharp. He stood in front of a massive screen showing data from across the galaxy. Behind him, 50 of humanity's best scientists waited for him to speak. "We've been studying them for 50 years, Minho said. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened. Every species in the Concordat, their biology, their psychology, how they think, how they fight, how they see the world." He touched the screen and images appeared. Alien faces, bodies, ships, weapons. 50 years of stolen data and careful observation. The Council was right about one thing, Minho continued. "We are weaker than them physically. A Vraxian can lift 10 times what a human can. A Krillian has reflexes 3 times faster than ours. A Thalas can survive in environments that would kill us in seconds." Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. These were facts everyone knew. Facts that hurt to hear. Minho turned around and smiled. But they missed something important. They evolved for dominance on single worlds. Each species adapted to one specific environment. One way of thinking. One way of fighting. Humans adapted to survive anywhere, eat anything, and overcome any obstacle. We're not specialists. We're survivors. He pulled up new data. More importantly, we have something none of them have. We were humiliated. We were told we were worthless. And humans, more than any other species we found, absolutely refused to accept that. A younger scientist named Hannah stood up. "The stealth technology is ready," she said. "We've been studying deep-sea creatures from Earth, cuttlefish, octopi. They can change their appearance instantly. We've adapted that for our ships. The Concordat's sensors can't detect us." Another scientist, Tae Yang, spoke next. "The combat training is complete. We've studied every battle the Concordat has fought for 1,000 years. They fight with honor. They follow rules. They announce their attacks and fight face to face." He paused. "We won't," Minho nodded slowly. "The question is, are we ready to test it?" Before anyone could answer, an alarm sounded. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. Minho pulled up a communication channel. A young officer's face appeared on the screen, eyes wide with fear. "Sir, we have a situation. A Deltari fleet just entered our solar system. 12 ships. They're heading for our mining colony on Titan." Everyone in the room went silent. The Deltari were a minor species, barely stronger than humans. They were always looking for ways to prove themselves to the larger Concordat powers. "What are they demanding?" Minho asked. "They're not demanding anything, sir. They're just taking it. They say our protected territory status doesn't mean anything if we can't defend it." Minho looked at the scientists around him. 50 years of planning, 50 years of preparation, and now a test had arrived without warning. "Contact Captain Junho," he said quietly. "Tell him to take the silent requiem. Tell him it's time." An hour later, Captain Junho sat in the command chair of humanity's first true warship. From the outside, it looked small and weak. The Deltari probably wouldn't even consider it a threat. That was exactly the point. "Sir, the Deltari fleet is surrounding the colony," his navigator said. "They're preparing to land troops." Junho was young for a captain, only 35. But he had trained for this his entire life. He had studied every battle tactic humanity had ever developed, and a few the Concordat had never imagined. "Activate stealth systems," he said calmly. The ship seemed to shimmer and then vanished from every sensor. On the Deltari ships, alarms suddenly blared as they lost track of the human vessel. Their commander barked orders in confusion. "Move us into position behind their flagship," Junho ordered. "Target their power core only. Minimum damage. No casualties." The silent requiem moved through space like a ghost. The Deltari ship spun in circles, searching desperately for the human vessel that had simply disappeared. Then the first Deltari ship went dark. Its power core was hit by a precision strike that shut it down without breaching the hull. No explosion, no deaths. Just a dead ship floating in space. "What's happening?" the Deltari commander screamed. "Find them!" Another ship went dark. Then another. The Deltari fleet fired wildly in every direction, hitting nothing but empty space. Some of their shots hit each other. Junho watched calmly as his crew worked. 6 hours. That's how long it took for the silent Requiem to disable all 12 Deltari ships without being detected once. 12 ships that could have destroyed the old human fleet now floated helplessly, their crews terrified and confused. Finally, Junho had his ship reappear directly in front of the Deltari flagship. He opened a communication channel. The Deltari commander stared at him with 4 eyes full of fear and rage. "This is human territory," Junho said simply. "Protected territory means protected. Tell your council what happened here. Tell them that humans remember." He cut the connection and his ship vanished again, leaving the Deltari stranded and humiliated. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. At first, the Concordat Council didn't believe it. 12 ships defeated by one human vessel? Impossible. It must have been luck or some kind of trick, but the Deltari crews told the same story. A human ship that couldn't be detected, weapons that struck with impossible precision. A crew that fought without honor, without warning, without following any rules the galaxy knew. On Terminus Prime, the council members gathered in an emergency meeting. The 6-armed Vraxian who had insulted humanity 50 years ago slammed his fists on the table. "This is unacceptable," he roared. "They are Category 4. They should not have this technology." The Reptilian Council member hissed softly. "Perhaps we need to reevaluate them." "No," said the Vraxian. "We need to remind them of their place, before they get ideas above their station." In the shadows of the council chamber, other species watched and listened. Some felt fear, some felt hope, and some, for the first time in 10,000 years, began to wonder if the Concordat's power was as absolute as everyone believed. Back on Earth, Minho received Junho's report. He read it carefully, then allowed himself a small smile. 50 years, he said to himself. 50 years of being called harmless. I think it's time we showed them what harmless really means. Outside his window, construction yards were busy building more ships. Not hundreds, not thousands. Just enough, because humanity had learned something the Concordat never understood. You don't need the biggest gun. You just need to know exactly where to aim. Earth appeared harmless, then the galaxy felt its wrath, Warlord Thex. Ron stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet on his screen. Earth, the homeworld of the pathetic humans who had embarrassed the Deltari fleet. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Krillian Empire was the most feared military power in the Concordat. For 3,000 years they had conquered world after world. Thexron himself had destroyed 17 civilizations. "One more would be easy. How many ships did you bring, Warlord?" asked his second-in-command. 300, Thexron said proudly. "More than enough to crush these insects. The Council will see that the Deltari failure was just weakness. When we conquer Earth, other species will remember their place." On Terminus Prime, the Council watched the Krillian fleet approach Earth. Some members were excited, some were nervous. All of them were curious. Would the humans fight or surrender? Deep in Earth's defensive command center, Commander Suman watched the Krillian fleet enter the solar system. She was calm. She had prepared for this day for years. 300 ships, said her tactical officer. "We have 80 combat vessels. They outnumber us 4-1. Suman smiled slightly. "Numbers don't mean what they used to mean. Activate Protocol Hornet's Nest." Across Earth's solar system, things began to wake up. Mining drones in the asteroid belt stopped mining and armed their explosive charges. Civilian transport ships opened hidden panels revealing missile launchers. Space stations deployed weapons that had been disguised as communication arrays. Even the smallest research vessels became part of a massive distributed weapons system. The Krillian fleet moved into formation near Jupiter. It was a traditional battle formation, designed to look impressive and terrifying. 300 massive warships arranged in perfect rows. "Human vessels detected," a Krillian officer reported. 80 ships. "They're staying near Earth." Thexron laughed. "They're afraid. Good, advance the fleet. We'll destroy them in their home orbit. Let them watch as we prepare to bombard their planet." The fleet moved forward. Earth's ships didn't move to intercept them. They just waited. "Something's wrong," Thexron's second-in-command said quietly. "This doesn't feel right." "You worry too much," Thexron said. But he felt it too. The humans were too calm. Then the asteroid belt exploded with movement. Thousands of mining drones, each one loaded with explosives, came screaming toward the Krillian fleet at incredible speed. They were too small and too many to shoot down effectively. Evasive maneuvers. Thexron shouted, The beautiful formation fell apart as ships scattered in every direction. Drones slammed into vessels, targeting engines and weapons systems with suicidal precision. 30 Krillian ships went dark in the first 2 minutes. Before Thexron could reform his fleet, human combat ships appeared, but they didn't appear where he expected. They came from above, below, behind. Each one appeared just long enough to fire at critical systems, then vanished again using their stealth technology. "They're everywhere," his tactical officer screamed. "I can't track them." A human ship materialized next to Thexron's flagship. It fired once, destroying their main communication array, then disappeared before the Krillians could return fire. Suddenly, Thexron couldn't coordinate with his fleet. On Earth, Commander Suman watched the battle unfold on her screens. "They're fighting the way we expected. Honorable, direct, predictable. Lieutenant Doyen, execute Phase 2. Lieutenant Doyen, commanding a squadron of stealth ships, smiled. "With pleasure, Commander." The human ships stopped attacking randomly. Instead, they started targeting specific systems in a specific order. First, they destroyed communication equipment, then weapons, then engines. They didn't destroy ships. They crippled them. Within 4 hours, 70 Krillian ships were floating helplessly in space. Their crews were alive but powerless. They could only watch as their fellow ships suffered the same fate. Thexron slammed his fist on his command chair. "Retreat. All ships retreat." But Commander Suman had predicted that too. As the Krillian fleet turned to run, they found the path back filled with orbital mines. Thousands of them, arranged in perfect patterns that forced the Krillians to slow down or fly straight into them. Human ships appeared in every direction. The Krillians were trapped in a cage they hadn't seen being built around them. Admiral Doyen, who had been promoted just for this moment, appeared on every Krillian ship's screen. He was old and calm, and his voice was gentle. "Warlord Thexron," he said, "you came here to demonstrate Krillian strength. You brought 300 ships to attack a world you thought was defenseless. Now you're trapped. You've lost 70 ships and you can't escape. I'm offering you terms. Surrender now, or we will destroy every ship you have." Thexron's face turned purple with rage. "Never. Krillians don't surrender to Category 4 primitives. We are warriors." His ship suddenly went dark. Every system shut down at once. Then the lights came back on, but Thexron wasn't controlling his ship anymore. Human hackers had taken complete control, you were saying? Admiral Doyen asked politely. On the screens, Thexron watched in horror as his own ship's weapons turned and pointed at each other. The humans had hacked into the Krillian fleet's computer systems. 300 warships were now controlled by Earth. "We can make your ships destroy each other," Doyen said quietly, "or you can surrender. Choose now." Thexron looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? The humans controlled everything. "We surrender," he said quietly. Each word felt like swallowing poison. "Good," Doyen said. "Here's what happens next. You will power down all weapons. You will move to the designated coordinates near Mars. You will wait there while we decide what to do with you. If any ship tries to escape, all ships will be destroyed. Do you understand?" Thexron nodded, unable to speak. On Terminus Prime, the council chamber was absolutely silent. They had watched the entire battle. 300 Krillian warships, the pride of the most feared empire in the galaxy, had been captured by 80 human ships and a bunch of mining drones. The 6-armed Vraxian stood slowly. His face was unreadable. This is impossible. But it wasn't impossible. It had happened. And everyone had watched it happen. 3 days later, the human fleet escorted 300 Krillian warships back toward Krillian space. Every ship had been stripped of weapons. Every ship had been painted with Earth's symbol, a simple blue and green circle. Every ship carried a message printed on its hull. Category 4, civilizations remember insults. Warlord Thexron, sitting in his flagship without any control over it, watched Earth disappear in the distance. He had been so certain of victory, so certain that humans were weak. He realized now what the Council had missed. Humans weren't weak. They just fought differently. They didn't care about honor or traditional warfare. They cared about winning, and they were very, very good at it. As his ship jumped into FTL, Thexron made a decision. If he survived what the Krillian Empire would do to him for this failure, he would never underestimate humans again. Behind him, Earth's solar system returned to normal. The mining drones went back to mining. The civilian ships went back to transporting. The hidden weapons disappeared back into their disguises. Commander Suman stood and stretched. "Send a message to the Council," she said. "Tell them Earth thanks them for the opportunity to test our defenses. And tell them we hope there won't be any more misunderstandings about our protected territory status." Her officers smiled. The message was polite. The threat underneath it was crystal clear. Don't test us again. Earth appeared harmless. Then the galaxy felt its wrath. The emergency council meeting had been going on for 6 hours. 3 of the 7 dominant species were furious about the Krillian defeat. They saw Earth as a threat that needed to be crushed immediately. "If we don't act now, other primitive species will think they can challenge us," the Vraxian representative roared. His 6 arms gestured wildly. "The humans must be destroyed as an example," the Thalas representative agreed. The Thalas were insect-like creatures who valued collective strength. One species cannot be allowed to disrupt 10,000 years of order. "Then we form a coalition," said the new Krillian representative. Thexron had been executed for his failure, replaced by someone even more aggressive. 3 empires, 4,000 warships. We will overwhelm them with pure force. No tricks will save them this time. 2 council species argued for diplomacy. 2 stayed neutral, watching and calculating their own advantages. But the war coalition didn't care. Within a week, they had assembled the largest military fleet in recorded history. 4,000 warships gathered at a staging point 3 light-years from Earth. It was an impressive sight. Ships from 3 different empires all united in one goal: to crush humanity. On Earth, President Nari addressed her government. "They're coming. 4,000 ships. Our intelligence says they'll arrive in 72 hours. The room was silent. Every military leader knew the truth. Earth had maybe 200 combat vessels now. Even with all their tricks and technology, they couldn't beat 4,000 ships in a direct fight. Colonel Yunji, head of Psychological Warfare Division, stood up. She was young but brilliant. "We don't need to beat 4,000 ships," she said calmly. "We need to make them beat themselves." Everyone looked at her. "The coalition is made of 3 species who hate each other," Yunji explained. "The Vraxians and Krillians have been rivals for 1,000 years. The Thalas don't trust either of them. The only thing holding them together is their fear and anger at us. So we take that apart." She pulled up plans that she had been developing for years. "We've spent decades studying their psychology. We know their weaknesses. We know their fears. And we've planted agents in their communication systems. We're going to make them destroy each other, and they'll never know we did it." Across the galaxy, human intelligence agents went to work. Agent Jiwan had been undercover in Vraxian space for 8 years. She looked like a Vraxian, walked like a Vraxian, and spoke perfect Vraxian. No one suspected she was human. She accessed the Vraxian military network and planted a file. It was a fake communication that looked like it came from Krillian High Command. The message detailed plans to betray the Vraxians and claim Earth for the Krillian Empire alone. Agent Sora did the same in Thalas space. She planted evidence that the Thalas leadership had been secretly negotiating with Earth, planning to surrender and switch sides at the last moment. The coalition fleet jumped into Earth's solar system exactly when predicted. 4,000 ships emerged from FTL in perfect formation. It was designed to terrify. It worked. On Earth, people watched the sky nervously. Even knowing the plan, it was hard not to be afraid. Commander Suman, now promoted to general, stood in the command center. "All ships execute retreat pattern Alpha. Make it look panicked." Human ships near the outer solar system suddenly scattered. They didn't fight. They didn't even shoot. They just ran toward Earth like they were terrified. The coalition fleet celebrated. "The humans are running." The Vraxian commander broadcast to his allies. "This will be easier than we thought." But as the fleet advanced, strange things started happening. A Vraxian captain received a message that appeared to come from Krillian command. It ordered Krillian ships to target specific Vraxian vessels during the battle. The captain forwarded it to his superiors. A Krillian admiral saw a communication that seemed to show Thalas ships moving into position to trap the Krillians. He alerted his fleet. The Thalas collective mind received information suggesting both allies were planning betrayal. Human diplomat Sora, using a fake identity, accidentally leaked classified documents to a neutral news network. The documents showed secret negotiations between all 3 coalition species. each one planning to betray the others and take Earth for themselves. The documents were fake, but they were perfect fakes, designed by people who had studied these species for 50 years. The Coalition fleet reached Jupiter. Human ships had retreated all the way to Earth's inner system. Victory seemed certain. Then Colonel Unji activated the final phase. Using quantum communication systems that the Coalition didn't know existed, human hackers flooded the Coalition's communication channels with intercepted messages, real messages that each species had sent privately, discussing how to divide Earth's resources after the war. Every species discovered that their allies had been planning to betray them all along. The Vraxian commander demanded an explanation from the Krillians. The Krillian commander accused the Vraxians of treachery. The Thalas Collective started moving their ships into defensive positions. Captain Hyun, commanding a squadron of human ships, watched from a distance. "Wait for it," he said quietly to his crew. The Coalition fleet began to break apart. Vraxian ships moved away from Krillian ships. Krillian ships turned to keep weapons pointed at the Vraxians. The Thalas fleet positioned themselves to defend against both. "Now," Hyun said. Human ships struck fast, but they didn't attack the Coalition directly. Instead, they destroyed communication relays. Suddenly, large parts of the Coalition fleet couldn't talk to each other. They were isolated, alone, and scared. In one isolated pocket, a human ship attacked a Vraxian vessel. But it attacked from a direction that made it look like the shot came from a Krillian ship. The Vraxian captain, already suspicious and unable to communicate with his commanders, made a decision. He fired back at the Krillian ship. The Krillian ship, seeing itself under attack from an ally, returned fire. It spread like fire through the fleet. Isolated groups of Coalition ships, unable to coordinate and already suspicious of each other, started fighting. Human ships darted between them, creating more confusion, making attacks look like they came from the wrong direction. Within 18 hours, the Coalition fleet had completely fallen apart. Vraxian, Krillian, and Thalas ships were fighting each other. 600 ships were destroyed or disabled, not by humans but by friendly fire. General Suman ordered the human fleet to pull back. "Let them finish," she said. Earth's 300 combat vessels sat in orbit around their homeworld and watched as 4,000 enemy ships tore each other apart. On the flagship of the Vraxian fleet, the commander finally managed to restore long-range communications. He connected with the Krillian and Thalas leaders. "What have we done?" he asked quietly. They all realized it at the same time. They had been manipulated. The humans had barely fired a shot. Every attack had been psychological. Every move had been designed to make the Coalition destroy itself. "Retreat," the Vraxian commander ordered. "All ships retreat immediately." What was left of the Coalition fleet limped away from Earth's solar system. 4,000 ships had arrived. Less than 3,000 left. They had lost over 1,000 ships, and Earth had barely participated in the fight. On Terminus Prime, the council chamber was chaos. Species were screaming at each other, accusing each other of betrayal. The 10,000-year-old peace was shattered. General Suman watched the Coalition retreat on her screens. She felt tired but satisfied. "Send a message to the Concordat," she said. "Tell them Earth is willing to discuss a new relationship. But tell them we will never again accept being treated as inferior. We've proven what we can do. Now they need to decide how they want to proceed." Colonel Yunji stood beside her. "Do you think they'll listen?" Sumin smiled. "They'll listen. Because now they understand something important. Humans don't need to be the strongest. We just need to be the smartest." Outside, Earth's sun rose on a new day. The planet had faced the largest military fleet in galactic history, and won without fighting a real battle. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Earth appeared harmless. Then the galaxy felt its wrath. 6 months after the Coalition's collapse, the galaxy was a different place. The Galactic Concordat was falling apart. The Vraxians and Krillians were at war with each other. The Thalas Collective had closed its borders and refused to communicate with anyone. Trade routes that had been stable for thousands of years were now dangerous. Border conflicts were breaking out everywhere. And Earth, the harmless Category 4 civilization, was suddenly the most important player in the galaxy. Ambassador Yuna sat in her office on Terminus Prime and looked at her schedule. She had 17 meetings today with representatives from different species. Some wanted military alliances, some wanted trade agreements, some just wanted protection from their former allies. It was strange. 50 years ago, she had stood in the council chamber and been told humanity was worthless. Now that same chamber sat mostly empty, while species came to her office instead. There was a knock on her door. "Come in," she said. 2 aliens entered. One was a Valurian, a species known for their scholarship and peaceful nature. The other was an Aristine, members of a merchant collective. Both species had stayed neutral during the Coalition War. "Ambassador," the Valurian said, bowing slightly. "We come seeking an alliance with Earth." Una gestured for them to sit. "I'm listening." The Aristine spoke next. "The old order is broken. The species who ruled through military strength are destroying each other. We are peaceful peoples. We need protection, and we need it from someone who won't conquer us in the process." "Why Earth?" Una asked, though she already knew the answer. "Because you defeated 2 major military powers without trying to conquer anyone," the Valurian said. "You proved you could destroy, but you chose not to. That makes you different from everyone else in this galaxy." Una considered this. "What would you offer in return?" "Knowledge," the Valurian said immediately. "My people have libraries dating back 100,000 years. We will share them with you." "Trade routes," the Aristine added. "We control merchant networks across 300 systems. We will open them to human ships." Una smiled. "Then I think we can work together." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. Smaller species that had been oppressed under the Concordat were reaching out to Earth. They didn't want human conquest. They wanted human protection. Chairman Seogen, Earth's new representative to Galactic Affairs, stood before what remained of the Concordat Council. Only 4 of the 7 dominant species had sent representatives. The chamber that once held the most powerful beings in the galaxy now felt empty and sad. "The old system is broken," Seogen said simply. "For 10,000 years, the Concordat ruled through military might. Species were judged by their strength, their weapons, their ability to conquer. That system led to this." He gestured at the empty platforms around him. "War, chaos, the collapse of everything you built." The remaining council members shifted uncomfortably. They knew he was right, but it hurt to hear it. "Earth proposes something new," Seogen continued. "We call it the Galactic Assembly. Every species gets a voice. Every civilization is equal. Decisions are made by discussion and voting, not by threats and military power." The Vraxian representative, a different one than had been there 50 years ago, laughed bitterly. "And who enforces these decisions? Who keeps the peace?" "Earth will," Seogen said calmly, "along with any species who join us. But we won't enforce through conquest. We'll enforce through the same methods that defeated your coalition: intelligence, strategy, making it more costly to break the peace than to keep it." "You mean manipulation," the Krillian representative said coldly. "I mean diplomacy," Seogen corrected, "backed by the proven ability to defend ourselves and our allies. The old guard can join this new system or continue destroying each other. The choice is yours." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Doyen oversaw the construction of the new fleet. It wasn't the largest fleet in the galaxy. It didn't need to be. Ships were being built with the latest technology: stealth systems, adaptive weapons, AI-assisted tactical networks. But more importantly, human advisors were training crews from 20 different species. They were teaching them everything humanity had learned. "Admiral," a young officer said, "the Krillian ship is requesting permission to dock." Doyen looked up in surprise. "The Krillians?" "Yes, sir. It's Thexron, the warlord we captured." Doyen was even more surprised. Thexron had been stripped of his rank and exiled after his defeat. "Send him to meeting room 3. An hour later, Doyen sat across from the alien who had once brought 300 ships to conquer Earth. Thexron looked older, tired. His armor was simple instead of ornate. "Why are you here?" Doyen asked directly. "To learn," Thexron said quietly. "I spent my entire life believing strength meant military power. You proved me wrong. You beat me without being stronger. You beat a coalition 4 times your size without fighting a real battle." He paused. "I want to understand how." Doyen studied him carefully. "And then what? You return to the Krillian Empire and use what you learn against us?" "There is no empire to return to," Thexron said bitterly. "We're in civil war. 3 different factions fighting for control, each one making the same mistakes I made, believing that bigger weapons and more soldiers will solve everything. He looked directly at Doyen. I'm tired of making mistakes. Teach me a better way. Doyen was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. But understand this, the human way of war isn't about being cruel or manipulative. It's about being smart. It's about only fighting when necessary, and ending fights as quickly as possible with minimum casualties.
Can you accept that?
Yes, Thexron said. Then welcome to the Galactic Assembly Defense Force. 5 years later, Dr. Minho sat in a comfortable office on what used to be called Terminus Prime. The station had been renamed Unity Station, and it looked very different now. The old council chamber had been converted into an assembly hall where representatives from 300 civilizations met regularly. Humans served as mediators and peacekeepers, but they didn't rule. Nobody ruled. That was the point. Minho was old now, in his 90s. His hair was white and his hands shook constantly. But he had lived to see his dream come true. Earth was no longer weak, no longer humiliated, no longer Category 4. There was a knock at his door. Captain Jisoo entered, though she was Fleet Commander Jisoo now. She was in her 70s, but still sharp. Thought I'd find you here, she said, sitting down without asking. Just thinking, Minho said, remembering that first day. When they told us we were harmless, Jisoo smiled. We were harmless. We just weren't helpless. There's a difference. Through the window they could see ships from dozens of species moving peacefully around the station. Krillians working alongside Valurians, Aristine traders sharing space with former enemies. And everywhere, human advisors teaching, training, mediating. Did we do the right thing? Minho asked quietly. What do you mean? We could have conquered, Minho said. After the coalition fell apart, we could have taken everything. Built an empire, become what the Concordat was. Jisoo thought about this. We could have, but we didn't. And that's what makes us different. We proved we could win. Then we proved we didn't need to rule. Maybe that's what the galaxy needed all along. Minho nodded slowly. The council said we were harmless because we had no claws, no armor, no telepathy. They measured strength in all the wrong ways. They didn't understand that real strength is here, Jisoo said, tapping her head. And here, she added, pointing at her heart. Humans survive. We adapt, we overcome, and most importantly, we remember why we fight. Not to conquer, but to protect. Not to rule, but to lift others up. She stood and moved to the window. Look at them. 100 species working together. Peace that actually means something. All because we refused to accept that we were worthless. Minho joined her at the window. Below, a young human officer was teaching a mixed-species crew tactical maneuvers. Nearby, Thexron was lecturing about the mistakes of the old Concordat military doctrine. Earth appeared harmless, Minho said softly, and we were. Until we needed to be something else, and now? Jisoo asked. Now we're something the galaxy never had before, Minho said. We're hope. We're proof that you don't need to be the strongest to change everything. You just need to refuse to quit. Far out in space, a new species made contact with the Galactic Assembly. They were weak by Concordat standards. In the old days, they would have been conquered or subjugated. Instead, they received a message from Earth. Welcome to the galaxy. You are among friends now. We will help you find your place here. No one will tell you that you are worthless. We learned that lesson the hard way, so you don't have to. The galaxy had learned its lesson too. Never underestimate the species that smiles politely, fights smart, and absolutely refuses to stay down. Category 4. Civilizations remember everything. And when they finally stand up, the whole galaxy feels it.